Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I rank the best card designs of 1995 Fleer. And yes, that sounds just as stupid to say as it does to hear. The 1995 Fleer design is hands down one of the worst card designs of all time, or one of the worst card sets of all time, for the simple reason that Fleer in 1994 made way too many inserts. And in the process, and I'm not complaining about that, but in the process, they had this idea of, well, we're going to do a bunch of designs, some will work, some won't. Yeah, and that's how it turned out. But then they asked the question, why don't we do this for a regular set? And so the next year, they answered that exact question. Unfortunately, the set is basically just like with the inserts, where some of the designs do actually turn out to be pretty good amidst all of these bad designs. That's the problem with the 95 Fleer design, or Fleer set, is the fact that you have all of the different divisions spread out throughout the whole card set, so you don't get to see all of the divisions clustered together. So you go from one design to another design, and then the same design, and then another design, another design. So every time there's a design that could potentially look good, you're quickly onto another design that doesn't look good. So it's very rare that you get to actually appreciate designs that somehow came out in good shape. And that's what I want to look at here. I want to isolate each one of the divisions and look at the cases where designs actually do work. But I do want to note, there are only 6 designs that I think actually fit. There's a top 5 and there's an honorable mention. But I do want to show you a couple of designs to show how a card could potentially work if it's given the right care. And so there are going to be 4 basically plus ones that I'm going to add on to the end of this. And a perfect example of that, we're going to start off here with baseball, with this Sammy Sosa card that, frankly, when I was first putting this list together, this was actually in the top 5. I really like how the Sammy card comes out. I mean, the color at the bottom is really cool, works well with the card. The logo, I think that everything about this card, except it's weird that his pants change color, but everything else about how this card is laid out, I think is really strong. The problem is when you then put it in the context of the rest of the division, you now understand that this was uniquely an anomaly. That bottom area is not another color, it's actually a color inversion. And, well, we got lucky with the Sammy Sosa card. It's as simple as that. The other cards are just an absolute train wreck, which not nearly as bad as when they did literally the whole card, which they did elsewhere in the set. So it's not like these cards are absolutely terrible, but still it comes down to, it's possible for something like this to work. It's just that you got to really care, and they just got lucky with Sammy Sosa. I wish that somebody had looked at the Sammy card and go, oh, you know what? We should totally do that, and figure out how to adjust their approach for the rest of the division to make them all look kind of cool. They didn't, but at least we got the Sammy card. Now, when we shift over to football, we have another example, which is the AFC East, where the Dan Marino card here is really strong. I wasn't going to be putting this in the top 5, but this was a lot stronger in this list because it's not a great card, but it's an interesting concept. The background, the way that it comes across, where he's kind of ghosted in there, it almost looks like stipple art. I look at this card and I go, actually, that's pretty cool. Well, okay, let's put it in the context of the conference, and all of a sudden, or the division, and now we see that, yeah, we got lucky with Marino, or with the Dolphins. Because, look, the Marshall Faulk card, you can tell that it's basically a color over the background. That's really kind of the key. And the Faulk card was such a horrible choice of a color. Now, at least with the Drew Bledsoe card, I look at that and I go, okay, all right, I don't hate that card. That's kind of an interesting card. It's not a good card, but at least there's something to it that I think works, that can potentially work. With Falk, it's a complete loss. But with that Dan Marino card, I like the Dan Marino card. And again, it shows that there's a lot of potential that's in here. Sometimes we get lucky, sometimes we don't. Now, of all of the plus ones, the one that's consistent is when you go over to the NFC East. Here, this is a card that is all about the image. The problem here is it's about the image, not about the player. It's supposed to be about the player, but when you have the background as cluttered as this is, you just can't really see him. That's a really unfortunate quality, because I love that they tried to make it all about the player. Now, down at the bottom, they also have a color inversion type of a thing going on that certainly does not help the card. So in this case, they started out in the right direction, but their very first step was not a good step. The next step wasn't a good step. The next step wasn't a good step. This is a case where I can't even really say they were designing things. They were throwing some stuff out there, which, well, is kind of the nature of this the whole set. So, still, again, not a rousing success. But we're going to end here the +1s with hockey, with the only hockey card on this list where, okay, I love this Pavel Bure card. Truly, I love this card. This is one of my favorite 1995 Fleer cards individually. I mean, I look at this card and I go, this is so totally top 5. Just that the green color is so strong. It really does a great job of contrasting and enunciating the shot of the player. It doesn't make him any clearer. It actually takes over the card, but it just brings so much out. And then down at the bottom, that's actually a Canucks logo. You'll have to take my word for it. This card, I look at this and I go, okay, this is a division that absolutely succeeded. Let's see the rest of the division. Oh my word, this did not succeed at all. I mean, this really is pretty staggering, where it still has all the things to make it, to at least make it interesting, where the logo down at the bottom works well enough on the cards. It's, it's not great, but it works for its purpose. The color, though, that really shows that that's a big part of how the card works, is if you can get the color right, or the way that the color reads, the card can be a lot more successful. So when I look at the division, I just go, yeah, this is a mess. They tried, well, I don't think they really tried. They threw some stuff on there and it failed. And then I go back to the Pavel Bure card and they go, well, maybe they started off with this and they got lucky with this card, and it was so great that they decided to make slight variations on the theme for other cards, or for other teams in the division. Maybe that's what they tried to do. Regardless, just like with Dan Marino, and especially with like Sammy Sosa, it shows you that one card can absolutely succeed even if the rest of them don't. Or at least one team can succeed, because the Canucks do tend to be pretty solid in this card set. Regardless, none of those cards cut the muster for the top 6 designs for very obvious reasons. But at least there are 3 cards individually that can make a run at it. So the honorable mention is the first card that actually gets stable, and that is for basketball, where, okay, so this is a card that is it's really the cleanest of all of them. The color pattern, the bright colors over the background only work because of the basketball print. That is what succeeds, and the reason for that is because when you look at other cards where there is more of the background, you can see that it creates kind of like a 3D effect of a backdrop behind the player, but in front of the background, and it gives a reason for the colors. That's a really good combination, but there's also a cleanliness to it that allows for each one of these cards to be solid. I still don't look at these cards and go, that's a card that I want to collect of a player. To me, it's one of those cards that kind of gets lost in the tapestry of all the other players, but at least here, this is a card that I do like having, and I'm glad that it's in my collection. That's really the key to this card. Still not yet a card that would work in a card set, but the design is getting a lot better. But again, it's not a top 5. This is the honorable mention. When I get into the top 5, we're actually getting into solid designs, starting with football with the NFC West. And this is a card that I could absolutely see an entire card set designed with. In our case, we only got a 1/6 of the set with these designs, which is unfortunate because, while it's not the greatest design ever, it does have a strong, it's like an echo of the 1995 Skybox Premium card, where the Skybox Premium card has a band down one side, picture on the other. and there's a bit of an interface, and the way that all that is laid out is very clean, crisp, solid. I really like how it looks. When I look at this card, I go, it's not as good, but I would be perfectly fine with an entire card set like this. Now, this might actually work better as maybe a league leader card, but still, whether it's a main card or a league leader card, this is something I think absolutely works for a set. Then we move on to the black and blue division, and here, okay, the card is becoming a lot more fun, but here, this is a card that's all about the player, and the player's actually, he's actually very clear and distinct and strong and upfront. When you look at the card, you see the player, but it also has that really cool effect where it takes the card and gives it some energy that the previous one didn't have. Now, this would not work for a main set. I don't even think it would really work for an insert set. It's a card I look at and I go, okay, I like it, but how would I use it? I know what. Let's use it as a team leader card, a team header card. So you have one of the players as the header card, and then you have the whole team following. So it's one card that stands out as a benchmark to kick off the next team cards. That I think would work really well. A header card, this would be perfect for, absolutely perfect for it. So I think we got this one solved. Really, I really do like this card. Don't love it though. But that segues me to number 3, which is where we go over to the AFC West. And here, this is a card that, okay, this is one of the 2 cards that is the reason I made this video in the first place. Because I looked at this and I went, this really isn't a top tier card for football overall, but I want to talk about how much I like this card. And it's weird because this stipple art card is basically the exact same thing they did in hockey, with a design that I thought was one of the worst. But it all comes down to, so the thing is with stipple art works in 2 ways. One, either you have the colors and the appearance of the background to carry across like a painting or like a photo. If you can do that, then the stipple art is reading well like a normal form of art. Or if you do a monochromatic backdrop, you can use this as almost like a ghost behind. In this case, it's not monochromatic. It's a dual chromatic. It's 2 team colors. But it works as a perfect, just general background behind that does a great job of matting and allowing the player to pop right out of the card more than any other card in this entire collection of cards. Well, across all 4 of the 1995 Fleer sets. This is the one that is most distinct and says, this is about this player. It doesn't have a distinct individual quality, but when I look at this card, I think, you know what this would be great as? A parallel. If this was the parallel of the base cards, all right, now I think we're actually starting to put together a really good card set. Well, let's see what we got over in number 2, and we go over to baseball with all right, I really like these cards a lot. It's very basic. The image is strong to the point where the image is what you're looking at. When you look at the card, you look at the image and you have that color over on the side as an accent to counterpoint it, but you're not really looking at the color. Well, actually, you're looking at both, but you're focusing on the picture of the player. But again, it's about the colors. What worked so well in the previous one is how the particular colors that they chose. Because let's look at the hockey card that I thought was terrible with the stipple art, and you can see that the colors are just absolutely horrible. You shift over to football, and now the colors are so rich and so strong. That's the key. That's what makes it work. And then you go over to these baseball cards, which obviously are a completely different concept, but it's very simple. It's just a light band of color that is over the top of the background. You can still see through it, and so it's almost like it's floating in front of the card in a way. That's kind of a good way of thinking about it, but it's the richness of it that just elevates the rest of the card. You also have the light text that is in kind of a cross shape, which is a really subtle piece, which makes it kind of haunting. This is a card that I want to see the whole card set this way. Tell you what, we'll take the 5 card, which could have worked as a main set. We'll just use that as a limited or as a league leader set, and then this will be the main cards in the set. And then of course we already know what the parallels are. But we still have one more to look at. We have the best of all the designs to look at, which is for basketball, where you have the teams that I grew up around here on the West Coast. And this design is the other one that's the reason I made this list, because I really, really like these cards. The bright colors, again, the color selection. The color selection is amazing for all of these cards. But also there's a very strong and clean look to the card, very similar to what we saw at number 5. But there's an energy and an interest that goes on in the card. Basically, it does all the things. It does not have a background, which means that if this was an entire set, it'd get old in a hurry. But I don't mind, because the rest of the card is so strong that I look at it and I go, yep, I am perfectly fine with this. I'm good with this. I love the way these cards work. Again, it's a little bit much for a card set, but if you did something like, I don't know, the All-Star team or the Pro Bowl team, okay, that's pretty awesome. So let's regroup. We have the top 5 designs, and if we had a card set that had this particular look to it, and it also had a parallel of these cards, and then it had, say, this for a header for each of the team cards, and then we've got league leaders that are designed like this, and we've got the All-Star or Pro Bowl cards that look like this. This is a card set that I look at and go, I want to collect that set. That would be really cool. So as you can see, Fleer had what it needed to make a really good card set. They just didn't bother to put it together. And it's a shame, because if it had, we would not have been loving this card set, but I don't think we would have been hating it. I think that would have been one of those quirky card sets that is kind of fun to explore, that we saw, well, from Fleer in, say, 1996. So I don't want for 1995 Fleer to be completely hated upon, because I think that it actually does have some merits to it. And I enjoy some of these cards, and I wish I could see more of them. That's really kind of what it comes down to, is I would love to see an entire card set with any one of these designs, just to kind of see how it came out. Even if they did like a 5 parallel version of a set, which is, very much the case of how things operate today. So that would have been kind of intriguing, but regardless, I do like these designs. Not necessarily for a card set, but I do like them. So let me know in the comments below which ones you think were just absolutely too ghastly and should not have been on here. Curious to hear what you have to say. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so. And thank you very much for watching.